Well, an eerie photo showing a pair of lights looming over a deer's head in the US has recently reignited the UFO debate. Experts were quick to debunk the theory, claiming it was just light reflected from the animal's eyes. But new UFO sightings are reported all the time, and often we never get an explanation. So what evidence do we actually have that they exist, and why do we so badly want to believe? An incident at Westall High School in Victoria in 1966 remains one of Australia's greatest UFO mysteries.
All I knew was what I saw, and it definitely was not any aircraft of the day.
There, more than 200 students and teachers at two schools allegedly witnessed an unexplained flying object land in a nearby field. But it's the Northern Territory's Wycliffe Wells that's the UFO capital of Australia, with more sightings here than anywhere else in the country. In the US, former Presidents Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter reportedly experienced multiple UFO sightings.
And it got closer and closer, and then it stayed there for a while, and then it disappeared into the distance.
And Bill Clinton recently admitted to investigating UFOs while he was president.
First, I had people go look at the records on Area 51 to make sure there was no alien down there. If we were visited someday, I wouldn't be surprised.
Area 51 is the top secret US government testing site in Nevada, which has been a beloved subject of UFO enthusiasts for generations. That is, along with the mystery object near Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. It's all sparked our society's fascination with the pursuit of extraterrestrial life. Well, joining us for this week's Spotlight on UFOs is social anthropologist Dr. Juan and Australia's leading UFO researcher Bill Chalker. Now, it's worth noting that we've contacted several Australian government organisations. We've contacted the CSIRO, ASIO, CASA, Defence and the Departments of Industry and Infrastructure, just to ask who actually takes responsibility for collecting and analysing UFO sightings data. Now, unfortunately, not one was able to take responsibility or even tell us who takes responsibility. They told us that the information was either listed as classified or they didn't know who had responsibility. Stephen, why such secrecy around this?
It's too hot, and they know that it's very controversial. It's a no-win situation for government, and of course there are issues of national security when you're looking at classified new aircraft.
Or could it be a case, Bill, that the data is just not credible enough to put any department in charge of it?
Well, much of it isn't very credible, but there is always this residue that is highly credible, and having looked at the government files, etc., and talked to a large number of the different agencies that you've mentioned, etc., I've got no doubt that there is a core of information there that sort of concerned them, but at the same time, budgets and all that kind of thing, mostly they defer to the United States and other countries, and France has got an ongoing kind of government investigation now anyway, so there are organisations looking at it in a serious way.
Well, Bill, when you talk about there being credible sightings, and obviously you must believe them, you've got a science background which is pretty evidence-based, and yet you strongly believe in UFOs.
Well, part of that's based on personal experience, but more I'm sort of more impressed with interviewing sort of thousands of people over the last few decades, etc. And amongst those, there's been this residue of highly compelling cases.
Such as?
Well, two of them particularly. One is Rosedale 1980, which was being a chemist background, etc. This one really interested me. UFO landing case, material left behind, a debris field, that kind of thing associated with the topography, and we were able to analyse much of that in the laboratory. Came up with some sort of unexplained sort of anomalies, but and the other one was a spectacular radar visual case that involved a narrow naval pilot back in 1954, and that's a highly regarded case even within the defence community, because for decades it was the subject of ongoing kind of intelligence agency interest, including up to the level of the government chief scientist, Dr. John Farrens, who I interviewed on that as well.
Stephen, we live in an ever-expanding universe. More stars have been discovered recently. What is your take on this? Is there proof that there is life outside our universe?
Oh yeah, well that may not be relating to UFOs. My own personal view, and yes, there are UFOs, but most of them do become identified. But there's still, as Bill was saying, that small group that we can't account for given our normal knowledge base, and there is something very interesting. it is definitely worth investigating because we really want to know. But look, humans, we probably are not the only human-like species in the universe, because there are so many opportunities for an Earth-like planet to be there, or a moon of a planet to be there, because there's so many stars. It's just statistically almost a certainty that there are the conditions that would bring about life that we have. But until we have the first case, we'll never know for sure.
Why are we so fascinated with UFOs? Is it driven by fear, or just the fact that we're used to having answers to everything?
Well, what a good question. Bill, if you don't mind, I'll take the floor. I know you have a take on this as well. But it's, you know, we've been identifying, well, we've been saying, admitting that we see strange things for the first sightings go back to 3000 BC, and even before we had any balloons or aircraft at all, there were reports of all sorts of discs and all sorts of craft of this kind. And you know, this is a historical reality. Maybe it's fears, maybe it's that there is something out there and we just don't know, so we have to make up a story. And I also have to say, sometimes though, people have just been on the grog a little bit in their imaginations, you know, this is going to happen. So you just don't know, but it's definitely worth studying. It is real, and anyone who says that this is that you're a weirdo if you think this is important, like Stephen Hawking unfortunately has said that. I've written to him and I've said, look, this is not a good view, because it's really unscientific to close your mind.
Yeah, right. Bill, if you come across an alien, what should you do? What should we say to them? You're the leading expert in Australia.
Well, I would check out first whether they're friendly or not, and if they are friendly, well then I would have a few million questions to ask myself. So, but if it's a UFO, etc., just take notice of details and report them to somebody credible, etc., and who's interested, seriously interested, rather than perhaps the media, who tend to look at it as an entertainment fodder perhaps from time to time.
It's interesting. You know, we've looked at it because we're interested in it, and we think that people out there are interested in it. So if people are interested, and if they do see a sighting, given that we've found out how difficult it is to actually report these, can they report them to your body?
They certainly can, yeah. It's UFO Investigation Centre. You can find me on YouTube. Just sort of look for my name, and you'll get the contact details that way. So
good stuff. And we'll put the details on our website as well. Thank you both.